This is the assembly video for the Schacht Flatiron Spinning Wheel. This assembly video is meant to work hand in hand with our instruction manual found in your box for the Schacht Flatiron Spinning Wheel. Please be sure to read all of the instructions in your instruction manual and on page 1 before starting the assembly of your Schacht Flatiron Spinning Wheel. Step 1. Preparing the frame sides. Parts bag number 1. Attach the rear axle bearing to the outside of the rear frame using parts from bag number 1. Be sure to install the 30mm frame bolt from the inside of the rear frame, or the wheel will not turn when assembled. Leave nuts attached but loose until after wheel alignment. Attach the front axle bearing, the small, to the outside of the front frame using the remaining parts from bag number 1, but do not fully tighten until after wheel alignment in step 10. Step 2. Assembling the frame. Parts bag number 2. Attach the narrow leg brace to the inside of the rear frame using the 30mm frame bolts and black barrel nuts. Tighten until snug. Attach the wide leg brace to the inside of the rear frame using the 40mm frame bolts and black barrel nuts. Tighten until snug, but do not create any bend in the frames until directed to tighten all bolts in instruction 3.3. Slide the long axle spacer, then 2 short axle spacers over the threaded end of the drive wheel axle. Slide the open end of the axle through the rear axle bearing. If you plan on assembling your wheel with the cotton double drive band, remove the installed poly drive band from the wheel now. Install the front frame by sliding the threaded end of the axle through the front axle bearing. Attach the front axle washer and a 3/8 16 thin lock nut to the axle, but only hand tight at this time. Attach the wide leg of the front frame to the wide leg brace using the 40mm frame bolts and black barrel nuts. Remove the wing nut and washer of the third hand assembly. Feed the plastic screw through the center hole on the narrow legs of the frames. Slide the washer and wing nut over the plastic screw. Then, tighten the wing nut until the narrow legs are in position against the narrow leg brace. Attach the narrow leg of the front frame to the narrow leg brace using 30mm frame bolts and black barrel nuts. Remove the third hand assembly. Tilt the wheel up on your work surface so that it is resting on the rim of the wheel and the wide legs of the frame. Using number 618 1.5-inch screws, attach the rubber feet into the holes drilled in the bottom of the frame sides and narrow leg brace. Do not over-tighten or the screws will strip the holes. Step 3. Assembling the maiden guides. Parts bag number 3. Attach the rear maiden back guide to the outside of the rear frame using number 8 7/8 maiden screws. Assemble the rear maiden based on your decision to have the flyer on the left or the flyer on the right. Tip. Insert the T-handle wrench through the hole in the side of the flyer bearing assembly and use it to hold the bearing in place while fully tightening the 3/8 16 thin lock nut. Tighten, but do not over-tighten, all of the frame bolts so that the frame sides take on the curves of the leg braces. Step 4. Installing the mother of all, MOA. Parts bag number 4. Thread the Scotch-Irish tension adjustment knob into the brass insert of the MOA assembly based on the flyer direction you have chosen for your flat iron. Tighten using the 3/8 inch wrench. Slide the end of the MOA assembly with the threaded rod through the crescent-shaped hole on the front frame. Press fit the rear maiden assembly from instruction 3.2 over the tenon on the end of the MOA assembly with the threaded rod. Carefully slide the threaded rod through the hole in the rear maiden back guide. Slide a 3/8 inch washer and then the cupped washer onto the threaded rod extending past the rear maiden back guide. Tighten a 3/8 16 thin lock nut onto the threaded rod. Install a plastic washer over the threaded post of the MOA tension control assembly, then thread it through the hole in the front frame. Install another plastic washer on the post and secure with a 3/8 16 lock nut. Do not over-tighten. Using the 3/8 wrench, hold the rod end of the MOA tension control in place while threading the MOA to rod end screw through the countersunk hole in the MOA and into the MOA adjuster rod end. Step 5. Installing the treadles. Parts bag number 5. Attach a treadle pillow block bearing inside of the wide leg of the front frame. This is easier if you tilt the assembly back on the drive wheel as suggested in instruction 2.11. Slide the other treadle pillow block bearing onto the 2-inch end of the treadle bar. The treadle bar assembly is designed to work no matter which side the flyer is on. The key to this installation is that the longer, 3.5-inch treadle block is positioned towards the wide leg brace of the spinning wheel. Fit the long end, 3.5 inches, of the treadle bar end into the pillow block attached in instruction 5.1. Secure the loose treadle pillow block bearing from instruction 5.2 to the inside of the narrow leg of the front frame. Rotate the treadle block so that the open channel is facing down. Lay out the treadle so that the short treadle is nesting inside of the long treadle with both of the treadle arms pointed towards the back, wide legs of the flat iron. Attach the treadles to the treadle blocks using the number 8 1-inch treadle screws. Step 6. Installing the crank and footman. Parts bag number 6. Slide the long end of the crank from the crank and footman assembly into the open end of the drive wheel axle. Line up the hole in the axle with the threaded hole in the crank arm. Secure the crank to the axle using 8/32 5/8 crank to axle bolt. Secure the treadles to the footman. Slide the number 10 1¼ inch treadle to footman screws up through the holes in the treadle arms and into the rubber connectors at the bottom of the footman. Tighten until snug, but do not over-tighten. At this point, you may want to oil where the footmen meet the crank. Step 7. Installing the front maiden. Parts bag number 7. With the Schacht logo facing out, fit the slot of the front maiden over the mortised end of the MOA until the holes line up. Unscrew the end cap from the quick release. Leaving the spring on the lever side of the assembly, fit the post of the quick release through the holes on the front maiden and MOA. Screw the end cap back onto the post. Close the quick release lever to hold the maiden in place. If the lever doesn't fully close, open the lever and back the end cap off until it does. Step 8. Installing the tension spring and string, drive band, and flyer assembly. Parts bag number 7. Guide the end of the string through the front guide eye and then through the hole on the tension control knob installed in instruction 4.1. Tie a knot in the end of the string and turn the tension control knob a few revolutions in either direction to take up some of the slack. You will take up the rest after choosing a tension style in step 11. Guide the looped end of the string through either the Scotch tension or Irish tension guide eye depending on your desired tension style. Open the quick release and let the front maiden fall open. At this point, make sure that your flyer is well oiled. Slide the bobbin and then a whirl onto the flyer shaft. Fit the looped end of the tension spring and string around the bobbin groove for Scotch tension or the open groove in the whirl for Irish tension. If you are using the poly drive band, free it from where it is taped to the wheel and extend the band until it is looped over a groove in the whirl. Step 9. Finish assembly of the Flatiron Spinning Wheel. Parts bag number 7. Slip the whirl knob O-ring over the whirl knob and use it to secure an extra whirl to the back side of the rear maiden by screwing the whirl knob into the threaded opening on the flyer bearing. Store the threading hook in the hole drilled in the front frame. Step 10. Aligning the drive wheel. Unscrew the wing nut from the horizontal alignment tool, the one with 2 nylon spacers. Keep the spacers on the bolt. Slide the bolt through any of the recessed holes in the wheel rim from the rear frame side through to the front frame side and reattach the wing nut, securing the tool in place. Unscrew the wing nut from the vertical alignment tool, the one with one nylon spacer. Keep the spacer on the screw. Slide it through the recessed hole in the wheel rim that is 2 spokes, or 90 degrees, ahead of the horizontal wheel alignment tool. Reattach the wing nut, securing the tool in place. Vertical adjustment. Rotate the wheel forward until the vertical adjustment tool is in line with the wide leg brace. Holding the top of the drive wheel, pivot the drive wheel left or right and also pivot the front axle bearing up and down until the adjustment tool just passes by the upright of the wide leg brace as the wheel is rotated. Tighten the barrel nut machine screw to secure the spacing. Horizontal alignment. Rotate the drive wheel until the horizontal adjustment tool is in line with the top edge of the rear frame. Stand above the flat iron and look down. Holding the drive wheel in the front or rear, pivot it to the left or right until the adjustment just kisses the rear frame when the wheel is rotated. Tighten the barrel nut machine screw to secure the spacing. Step 12. Adjusting or replacing the drive band. Removing or replacing the drive band on your flat iron is easy. Remove the 1024 1¼ inch machine screws, axle washer, 3/8 16th lock nut, and front axle bearing, installed in instruction 1.2. To remove a band, pulling from inside of the frame, take the drive band down from around the drive wheel and towards the treadles. When the drive band stops, roll it off the edge of the axle and remove the band. To install a band, starting from the inside of the front frame, feed the new drive band into the oval-shaped hole where the axle rests, looping up and over the axle and back to the inside of the front frame. Bring the loop up and over the drive wheel. Make sure that the entire drive band is between the 2 frame sides. For more helpful tips, the following videos can be a real help.